The topic, 7 contract topics every physician needs to review. So we're going to walk through 7 topics that we think every physician should at least know what's going on inside of their contract. And you'll hear me note numerous times, you should use an attorney to walk through this. And I know that HR and maybe other physicians in the practice have noted as standard or, everything is usual, but still this contract has a lot of moving parts to it that are going to affect at least a few years of your life, if not even longer. So today we're going to walk through 7 of those items to look for, and that's all coming up next, so stay tuned. Alright, first up is just know your obligations. So I know this is pretty standard, but you should read through it and make sure you know what to be expecting. Obviously, we know the traditional sense of what your obligations are, but read the fine print. How many hours are you expected to be on call? Are you on one weekend, off one weekend? Are you doing blood results and analyzing, tests? Going through all the details of your contract, and obviously I'm using some broad terms here because this will be really precise to your specialty, but still know your contract obligations. This is one where I think you should be able to read through and understand at least what you're obligated to do. If something doesn't make sense, ask your employer, what does this mean? What are the specifics? If something really seems odd, again, circle it, highlight it, send it over to your attorney and say, what exactly does this refer to? So first and foremost, just know your obligations. Next up is a big one, compensation. How is your compensation structured? So the first one, the easy one, is always your base salary. I think that one makes the most sense. Here's my base salary. But after that, it can get a little bit murky. How is your bonus structure set up? How are your RVUs set up? Are you in a new practice that's just getting started up, and your odds of you actually hitting bonus based on patients coming in could be very small? Did they add in any other bonuses into your compensation structure? This is where often we like to say, is there something to help with student loans? Is there something to help with travel costs? Is there something to help with just your ongoing continuing education and keeping your licenses up to date? Reading through the fine print and understanding your compensation is huge. And this is one where we think working with an attorney that may have also looked through other contracts for that same hospital or that same practice could be beneficial because they're seeing it, they've gone through it a few times, they understand the technical jargon on their numbers perspective. From the financial advising side, this is one of the parts that we love the most to dig into as well and just see what's going on there and walk through the pros and cons. And keep in mind, compensation isn't always a dollar amount. This can also just come back to basic benefits. How is the 401k or the 403b? Do they have a 457b? Do they allow after-tax contributions? Do they have great disability actually that really helps, possibly pair with a private policy? Do they have good group term life insurance in place? Reading through that, even health insurance, let's go back to all of them. Do they have HSAs? Do they have FSAs? Understanding the benefit structure as well can also help maybe make that, $300,000 salary versus the $350,000 salary. Actually, when you include the benefits, they're pretty darn close. So make sure you understand the compensation structure. Again, I think this is probably the biggest one. This is one we're most excited to look at. But again, a good thing to have your attorney walk through, but you should also understand the moving parts to the compensation side of your contract. Next up is just know your contract terms. So this is one, and by term we mean length. So this one I think is relatively simple, but we're still somewhat amazed by how many individuals didn't realize they signed on for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I think if you're coming out of training, usually we see 2 to 3 years, but again, this can vary. Maybe possibly a little bit later in your career. If you're more experienced attending, that contract can go a little bit longer. You can also work on negotiating this. Maybe you love this area, maybe you love Philadelphia, maybe you love Seattle, and you're going to work in a longer contract because this is where your family's roots are. Know the terms of the contract. If you don't like them or something doesn't make sense, again, talk to your employer. While we always say these contracts are usually built to try to benefit the employer, they also want to make sure they're bringing on good physicians and locking those physicians in for long term because it's a win-win. So while we do think that, obviously they're going to put their best interests first, they still want to work with you and make sure they're coming to the table. So if something doesn't make sense or you have a question or you want to change something, especially in the contract terms, I think this is probably one of the easier things to look at from a contract perspective. Review that, talk with your attorney, talk with your employer, but just know what the term is. Truthfully, the next one is not that exciting for me, but understanding the defined terms. This is one where I would rely heavily on an attorney to walk through and break down all the technical jargon into layman terms for both you and even individuals like myself that are helping read through it. They understand the technical jargon, those defined terms. Most of them they're going to list out and say this is what this means, this is what this means, but still sometimes there's so many moving pieces it's hard to actually put everything together. So understand what the defined terms are. If something doesn't make sense, again, talk to your attorney, talk to your employer and say, hey, I'm a little bit confused on this topic, but the main takeaway here is just know what they are, know where they're listed, and understand how they're affecting your contract. Next up is my favorite topic in a contract, and that's fringe benefits. So I noted a few of these topics on the number side of thing, on your actual salary negotiation part, but let's just talk a little bit more detailed on the fringe benefits. So fringe benefits are those benefits that they may not say, hey, your base salary is $30,000 higher, but these are benefits that have a huge effect on your long term. We always start with retirement plans. Do they just have a 401k? Do they just have a 403b? If they offer a 403b and a 457b, for us, we consider that a huge win. That's one thing that we love to see. Do they have some type of after-tax option inside of a 401k? Do they have an auto conversion feature? So we always get excited about the term backdoor Roth IRA, but as we move forward here and just modernizing some of these retirement plans, we're starting to see some companies are putting auto conversion features. So as soon as you make your after-tax contribution inside the 401k, it's converting it the next day to a Roth. So the mega backdoor Roth IRA that we always talk about is embedded into the 401k. These are huge benefits that it will not show up in your salary, but it's having a big effect on the long term. Again, health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, HSAs, FSAs, commuter benefits. Do they have a good maternity leave? Do they have paternity leave? Going through all the benefits, understanding how the fringe benefits work. And again, if you want to add something in and you think it's fair, and even if that attorney, again, has seen some of these contracts, they might be able to say, hey, listen, physician X and physician Y also said that they've added in a student loan. They asked for a student loan benefit and they added it. You should ask for that too. So understanding what the benefits are, if you think there's something there to ask for more, go for it. Again, talk to your employer, talk to your attorney. But I think fringe benefits is one of those things in a contract that does not get enough love. There's a lot of benefits you want to look at. Again, are you just finishing training? Are you going from Philadelphia to Seattle? Are you moving across the country? Are they going to pay for your relocation? Are you, same thing, maybe you're a 10-year attending, but you're moving from Chicago to Oklahoma. Another good reason to see, will they add in some type of moving benefit in there as well. So just understand your fringe benefits, walk through those. Again, this is one of my favorite sections. Usually it's a pretty fun section too for our clients as well, just because I think these are the most relatable benefits opposed to just the salary part. So understand your fringe benefits. If you want to add something in, talk to your employer, but at least know what they are and understand that some of those benefits don't list a dollar amount with them, but they are having a big effect on your long-term financial success. All right, the next section, hopefully you never have to worry about this section, but you should know what the fine print says. Again, another good section for your attorney to come in, but just what are their reasons for termination? If you're sick or you're disabled for a period of time, if you essentially have a license suspended, if you have misconduct, what reasons do they put in the contract that they are allowed to terminate your employment? Understand what they are, talk through them. Again, this is another good attorney review section so that you understand all the moving parts. Again, hopefully no one ever has to worry about this section, but you should always know what's going on. You're going to sign this document, make sure you know what's going on. But again, for this section, understand what they're listing for possible reasons for termination, and then also talking to your attorney to make sure you understand all those moving parts as well. All right, the last section, so the seventh tip we have for reviewing your contract is just understanding a non-compete. Again, another really valuable section to have an attorney break down any technical jargon that's embedded in there. But for the most part, just understanding if there's a non-compete in place and how do they structure that non-compete. I know when you sign that contract, especially if you're coming out of training and it's your first attending role, we're all excited. This is the best employer in the world. I will work here until I'm 100 years old. I'm all in. But we know things change. Maybe you get another good offer. Maybe you're having burnout in your current role. Maybe that it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies at the end of it, and you're not that happy. understand what your non-compete is. Again, if you need to structure in some flexibility here, talk to your attorney. Understand, you can chat with this about your attorney, or excuse me, with your employer, but understand what the non-compete is. Again, hopefully we don't ever have to cross this section and everything just works out fine. But the reality is you always have to plan for that what if scenario, or maybe something better does come along. So understand the non-compete. If something doesn't make sense, talk with your attorney. If you want to add something or add some flexibility in there, talk with your employer. All right, there you have it. So those are the 7 contract tips that we wanted to walk through, the 7 contract sections we want you to review. And at the very end of the blog post, which we'll link to the show notes here, we just make a note is don't go at this alone. So whether you're going to hire an attorney, which we think is a good idea, yes, it's going to cost some money, but it's well worth the cost of admission. We'll also put a link to Dr. Dolly, the White Coat Investor. He has a few resources out there where they're not all attorneys, but they do physician contract reviews. So we'll list that in there as well. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next video.